25% of the global body and produce less than 5% of world research output. And why is that the case? The West, the global North, they dominate the journals. If you look at the editorial board of the journals, you find that most of them are Westerners. So they are the gatekeepers. And they set the agenda. They decide what is important. And that has implication in terms of how we frame our research to have a global appeal. That is the key issue. How do you now frame your research to have a global appeal? If you're going to have a conversation with a global audience, you need to understand how you can frame your research, which you've done within the Nigerian context, to have a wider appeal. So they dominate the funding stream, the topics that are accepted, and all that. Now, African scholars have no presence in top journals. So when you look at the top journals, you take the statistics, you find out that many African scholars are not being featured. So why is that the case? Does it mean we don't have the capacity? Discussing with colleagues, I found out that we have the capacity. It's not that we don't have the strategy. And this focus this afternoon is about to look at the strategy, how you be able to understand. It's a game. And it has its rules. How you understand the dynamics to be able to position your research in such a way that it will have a global appeal and will be receptive in top journals. However, there are constraints to publishing in top journals. And some of these constraints are institutional constraints based on the higher education landscape we find ourselves in this country. We have capacity and resource constraint. We can't be a competitive country without a significant number of people engaged in knowledge production. And one of the reasons why I say we have resource constraint is that when you look at how do people develop research skills, that is the first question. Research skills are normally developed or consolidated in doctoral programs. When you look at the quality of doctoral programs in many universities, you find out that they don't have the capacity to train scholars in the new research methods that will enable them to publish in top journals. You can't give what you don't have. If your supervisor cannot do it, it will be very difficult for you to do it. That is the truth about it. Yeah, that is why Nigerian universities have received this consciousness and saying, let's change the narrative. Let's begin to push our colleagues. Let's begin to push ourselves to go and retool. Let's learn this so that we'll be able to provide more guidance to the up and coming generation, so that the future generation of social science scholars will be able to contribute beyond the national context and do more global acknowledged research. Now, but why are we not able to publish? One of the things I've found out is that when you go to Nigerian universities, we don't have so much resources for research. The tuition fees are generally not invested in research. People believe more on, could I say, the tangibles that they see, rather than the investment in soft skills, human resource development that will enable people to be able to operate at a expected level. Staff-student ratios are very high. Staff-student ratios are very high. Is one lecturer teaching about how many courses? You just say it. So the marking load is enormous. Even when you're in conference, you are greedy. You're doing all kinds of work because of the student number. Now, that is not the same when you go abroad. In many top universities, you find out that the staff-student ratio is very low. You could see people who don't even teach a whole semester. While I was in the UK, there are semesters I don't teach. And even the semester that I teach maybe 2 or 3 courses. So I have enough time for research. And that helps me to be able to balance a lot of conflicting demands on my time. Now, positive of funds for research, the only key research grant is TED Fund nationally. So there are not many grant opportunities for you to fund their research. So people resort to using their personal effort to be able to fund their research, which has so much limitation. However, there are opportunities globally. I've been able to also attract a research fund even by operating from Nigeria. So I know that it's also very possible for you to be able to attract, if you challenge yourself a bit more, to get a research fund. But that's a different discussion. Let's focus on just publishing. Now, Nigerian universities do not reward high flyers. I'm looking at the context. Why are we not seeing the quantity of research we expect? We don't reward high flyers. What I mean by that is, irrespective of how good you are in terms of research, there's an expectation that you have to mature, pay your dues, isn't it? Yeah, my all senior colleagues will know this even much more than I do. So you have to spend 3 years in rank, minimum, before you get to the next one, irrespective of how prolific you are and others. So there is not much incentive to push the boundaries. Because at the end of the day, even if you move at snail speed, you still get to the same point. So you could as well relax and not push yourself. But that is the difference between some of our universities. It's for good reasons. Because if you have a very bad vice-chancellor and institutional processes are not strong, then he will also manipulate the whole process and get an assistant lecturer and make him a professor. So I can understand the reason why it is where we are, but that is also a constraining factor of why we are not also getting the kind of high flyers we need. Now, Nigerian context may be less interesting to international scholars because of villagization. This is a term Professor Sars Soludo introduced when he came to FUNAI sometime 3 months ago. We invited him for a similar conference on sustainable development. And when he was trying to dissect the problem with Nigerian University, he talked about villagization. And I think that captures that a whole lot. You know, he thinks out of the box. Or sure, he thinks without the box, as he said. So it's villagization. So you see that it's becoming more homogeneous. So you can't see any state university here that does not have a vice-chancellor from that state, irrespective of the top talents that parade globally. When you go to federal institution, it's similar. Statutory adverts, just to fulfill righteousness. Indeed, the temporal appointment, which is supposed to be occasional, rarely given, as the need arises, has become the order of the day. And the normal rigorous process of recruitment has become extinct. So garbage in, garbage out. If you don't get the right scholars, many people are coming to academia because they feel that's a more secure job. They don't have the calling. And if you don't have that, it will be difficult for you to rise up and publish in top journals, because you need to have the flair, you need to have that enthusiasm. Now, and the consequence of all that is that Nigerian universities are not globally recognized. But we are improving. In the recent, I've looked at the 2020 ranking. 4 Nigerian universities, about 3 topmost Nigerian universities are included: Covenant, Ibadan, UNN. 401 to 501 globally. And what are they looking at? The research productivity. We're talking about research that are visible online. Research that are visible online, not the research you do that has no visibility. Now, we're going to go beyond just visible online, because you can do any trash and put it online. We're going to talk about publishing in those journals that have a rigorous peer review process. Okay. So the key question is, Africa must solve her own problem. That is the truth about it. This essence of this research is to be able to generate knowledge that will enable us solve our problem. But the paradox is, this is your local problem. But why is an American interested in this problem? Why will he be interested in your problem? because they control the journals. Why would a British person be interested in your problem? Because they control the journals. So you need to frame your paper in such a way that it addresses the local problem, but still have an international dimension. So that means you need to have an understanding, you must keep abreast with the literature, with the conversation in your field. So that is the key problem. Can those on the margins focus their research on national problem and at the same time speak to the universal? We have a great opportunity, because when you look at the literature, when people say a few things, particularly generalize about the state of the body of literature. Now, there is always an omission about the African perspective. So you cannot say you understand a phenomenon if you have not studied it globally. Perhaps you are just studying it using wide sample in one country. So you cannot make a definitive claim that you understand the phenomenon, because it can play out differently in different contexts. So for us to have a rounded understanding of phenomenon, we need the African perspective. So they are also interested in African scholarship. A number of people will tell you they want to collaborate to collect data from Africa. So the point then is, how do you frame this research to have a global appeal? And that is a trick in it. So we're going to look at how we can frame our research so that we can disrupt the idea of universal knowledge. You can't tell me this is what motivates people when you haven't explored what motivates people in Africa. So how do we make our data sets to be useful? Now, the challenge about publishing, I'm setting this so that you can understand where we're coming from before we begin to go to more specifics in terms of the strategies, the unwritten rules, and all that. It's for you to have an understanding of the landscape. Now, it's becoming more difficult to publish because universities in the US, UK, all over the world, we are fishing in the same pond. Everyone wants to publish in top journals. So we are all fishing in the same pond. So the competition is stiffer. So the submission rate is increasing and the rejection rate is increasing. The acceptance rate is becoming lower because we are fishing in the same pond. Now, in order to address this problem, you find that there are now emergence of all sorts of journals. Predatory journals, clone journals, and all that, because they want to cash in into that opportunity because they are seeing what is happening. Everyone wants to publish in top journals. So they are providing outlets which seemingly has impact factor. Whereas, when you prove further, you find out that this is a bogus impact factor. So we're going to look at those things because you need to be guided so that you can take informed decision as to where to publish. Now, why do you need to publish? You have to understand why do you need to publish as an academic. You've done very few research which are presented in this conference. Are you going to do even much more? So why do we need to publish? If we don't publish, we don't disseminate the knowledge. It will just end up in the shelf. I went to the library this afternoon. I was very happy. I saw the collections, the knowledge that has been produced over and over the years. Sometimes I ask myself, how do we as a country know the state of knowledge in a particular field? If I want to do a PhD today, first of all, I need to add to the existing knowledge. But how can you even know the existing knowledge? Because knowledge is so fragmented in this country. There's no systematic way of putting together the body of knowledge we have so that you can build on something. So I could just be doing something here in Enugu and somebody is doing something similar in UNN. And we're just reinventing the world, going around circles. So how do I search and find out what has happened so that I can build on that has happened? I'll save myself time. So we must find a national database that can put together the knowledge we are producing. And that's what online provides us. But we must find a systematic way of putting together all this knowledge. Now, one beautiful thing about publishing is that it will build your profile. You have a voice. You have an identity, nationally and globally. That is what it helps you. If you're a good teacher, your students will enjoy you, they will appreciate you. However, you will only be known within the confines of your environment. But when you publish, someone in Japan can read it. And when they hear there's a conference, they're looking forward to go and see that guy in that conference. They look at the names. Who are those going to come there? So they're looking for those big names to go there. There's a sense of accomplishment that comes with it. So scholars publish to enhance their reputation. Through that, you can be invited to be members of a review of journals, or even to serve as editor of a journal through publishing consistently in top journals. So, but more importantly, you are contributing to knowledge development, knowledge production that solves societal problems. So that is very crucial. That's one of the key reasons, and should be indeed the key reason for publishing. Now, there are other factors. There's nothing like seeing your name in print for the first time. I mean, I remember when I published my first paper in a top journal. There's a good feeling that you have. Yes, there's a good feeling you have that this work that you did is now being acknowledged, and people can cite you. Your students can read you. There is something about it, and that is very important. I wonder how many persons who are scholars here who have Google Scholar profile. Okay, very, very important. When I saw the keynote speakers here, the first thing I did was just to go and profile them. And that's what happens. People profile you without you knowing. So you must make sure that you have a Google Scholar profile. So what it does is that all your citations of your work, they find a way to put it together. So when people do a search, something comes out from your name. They could see the citations, 100, 200. Now, as you grow in influence, then it's going to increase. And as you publish more, the citation will increase. So that is very, very important. Yeah, academics in the world will remember you because of your papers. Now, think about Hofstede, Maslow, Hensberg, Michael Porter. Some of us have never seen them, but it's their work. Some of them are even late, but it becomes a continuous destiny. But that's what you aspire. And you produce work that even long after you've gone, people are still making reference to that enduring contribution you have made in the body of knowledge. And African is an uncharted territory. There's a whole lot we can give to the world if we can do meaningful research. Because people are looking at the African dimension. So we have the opportunity to do so. I just tried to flag up, I did a search to see who are the people who have so much influence in the social sciences. And I came across this person, Hofstede. I don't know if anyone has read his work. Hofstede. Now, anything you do about national culture, this is the point of departure. Anything that is the key foundational work on national culture. So anything that comes about national culture, you will find Hofstede. Now, Hofstede did a work with IBM to look at how countries differ along cultural lines. So most scholars that do international comparative work, they draw on his work for their research. Now, when you look at his Google Scholar citation, look at the number of times he's been cited. Over 1 million times. Over 1 million times. One person. Now, if you go to Nigerian universities, if you put together all the citations of all the scholars in the university, some of them does not get to half of this. So here's an institution. Won't you like this to develop yourself to such an extent that you command this kind of acknowledgement and people make reference to your work? I also talked about Michael Porter. People that do marketing research would have come across the work of Michael Porter. If it's not published in top journals, he's in Harvard Business School. If you don't publish in top journals, there'll be no visibility of your work, and people will not be able to cite you. You're restricting your audience. You're restricting your audience. But when you publish in top journals, then you're exposing your work to the globe. Now, why do you not publish? I want to listen to you. I want to understand where you are with your public. Have anyone had opportunity to publish? How was it for you? Has anyone here tried to publish in a top journal?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. What was the experience like? It could be frustrating. Yeah. Okay. Several rejects. Corrections. Restructuring. Say it again. The review process. Okay. Uh-huh.
And when you key in, they give you another direction and you continually succeed.
Okay, that's a good one. I'm happy it ends in a positive note. And there's a template. Okay. Yeah, but very often, some work are just rejected. They don't even give you a chance. They just say it's not worth our time, spending time reading this work. So as you're dropping it there, 2 days after, they just politely write you a letter and tell you that, sorry, we're not going to process this paper. So you will even be very delighted if they give you audience and put it together and allow it to be reviewed. So one of the things we're going to get out of this is to increase our chances of not getting a desk reject. Yeah, it could be very frustrating after you have done the very good research and you're not able to publish in top journals. And one of the reasons why we don't publish in top journals is not because we don't have the intellect. It's just that we don't have the strategy. Yeah, it's about strategy. It's not about the intellect. Every rule has its game, and some of these rules are unwritten. So we hope that we're going to demystify some of this. Now, yeah, some of them are unwritten. Yeah. Why do you not publish? Now, a lot of people, when I had an interview with people based on personal conversation, one of the things they told me is that it is not good yet enough. So they're expecting it to develop much more before they will try the waters. Okay. Now, for me, I believe you don't need to wait for it to be well developed before you send it out. Yeah, make it hot through sending it out, people reviewing it and giving you feedback, and you can develop your ideas. Some people are also afraid of failure. Perhaps you have gotten to a certain stage and don't want papers to be rejected. But this game is not for the lean-hearted. It's for the tough-skinned people. And when they reject your work, it's your paper that they rejected, not you. Yeah. So you have to understand it that way. But I know it could be very painful as the professor, and they just deal with you. Yeah, but it's not about your title. It's not about your whatever. It is now about this work, this paper. Yeah. Now, and I also noticed, when you look at some of the publications we have here, you will see even the title, professor, whatever. It's not necessary, and they don't value it. I recall going to a conference in the US many years ago. I think it was about 2005. Now, I was still very close to a dean of a business school in Lagos. Now, this guy, I was very excited. We are the only 2 Africans that were in that conference. So we got talking. I was very excited, to meet him. He was sitting close to me. He did his PowerPoint, and I could see Professor so and so, Dean so and so. Now, after the first presentation, the kind of question they asked the guy, I just saw this man remove his professor first, and secondly, remove his Dean. Yes, because he became apparent to him that if he takes this stage and introduces himself in this manner, there will be more scrutiny of his work, because there will be more expectation that you should know. Yeah, so I just say how to remove it. Yeah, so the point is, it is now about the work. Indeed, the most of these journals will tell you to remove institutional affiliation, author details, and all that, so that the reviewers will focus on just the work. And there are platforms, Scholar One and all that will anonymize it, so they cannot even trace where is this paper coming from, to ensure that they're looking just at the work itself. So you have to make sure you do it that way. Now, some people now ask, I don't have money. They'll tell you it's so expensive. You ask them how expensive. You say, to publish one paper, it gives you about $100, $400. And you're very surprised. So the papers you publish, how much do you pay? Some of us have had experience. Yeah. How much do you pay? $150. $100, 150. Yeah. 1,000. Okay. 1,000. I'm going to request the director. Why don't you all bring this money? Let's give it to the business school and organize seminars on the act of writing. Now, because when you do this, you begin to publish in journals that will not ask you for a dime. There are so many journals. The first factor, once I ask you how much they pay, you tell me how much they pay. First of all, I'll tell you it's a predatory journal. Because most top journals will ask you for nothing. That is the truth. Most top journals. Because they get their money through the readers. So it is people that are going to pay to read. That's where they get the money. So when they're asking you for money upfront, so they don't care the quality. Yeah. You have paid it off for the airspace or for the domain name or for it to be hosted on the website. So they'll compromise the quality, the review process. Now, sir, please bring that money. Let's support the business school and do a writing retreat and build our capacity. There are techniques in how to write introduction. There are techniques on how to do a literature review. All these have approaches to it, so that we can begin to publish in those journals that will not ask us anything. The only proviso, in some cases, they will ask you to pay, but the money they will ask you to pay for open access, will be very much. It could be about £3,000. Now, but those journals will also give you opportunity not to pay. But if you decide, the whole idea is that some research grants, when you do a research funded by any research agency, they will expect that this is public fund. We have paid for this research, so this knowledge should be open. You should not pay twice. So they expect that if it's a funded research, there should be open access, so anyone can read it, because it is public fund. Now, that is the only proviso that I will suggest if you want to pay. If you want to make your work open access. But it's not $100, it's not $150. I'm talking about big money. Yeah. But the litmus test is just try to publish in those journals that will not ask you for money. When I finished my PhD many years ago, I don't have research skill. That's one of the challenges. When I finished my PhD at Brunel University, my then supervisor was appointed as an editor of a top journal. I was very excited. I said, this is a low-hanging fruit. My supervisor has become an editor of a journal. I will just walk into this journal and submit my paper. So I sent her a quick email congratulating her and telling her that I'm going to submit a paper to the journal. She sent me a polite response that she wanted to have a conversation with me. When I came to her office days after to have that conversation, she told me, as long as I'm the editor in this journal, I will not publish you. Yeah. She told me that. Yes. Naturally, I should be offended, but she told me the reason. That I should target those journals where I know nobody. Let people assess me based on the content of my work. That advice has made me a stronger scholar today. Yeah. If she did not toe that path, and based on interpersonal relationship, had published my work, I wouldn't have the confidence that I have ideas that can be published in good outlets. I would have started my career on that pedestal based on relationship, not based on capabilities. And that is very, very key. As academics, you mentor people, you train people, you allow them to go out there. Let them go to the field, test the water. Yeah, they get beaten, they learn from it. And then they develop. But she told me something, but I will support you in that process. I will support you. But you will not publish here. Let's do it together. And she supported me. Anytime I come for ideas, support, she did give it to me. Yeah, but the point then is that the paper was published and I got confidence that I could write, that some journals could accept my work. And that is what is missing here. You find a whole lot of people, they're looking for where their friend is an editor, You scratch my back, I scratch your back. Yeah, I pay money, you return money. It's kind of rubbish. And this is why the university are saying, for us to promote you, you need to publish in those journals where they believe that the review process is rigorous, where they know that people are going to pay to read those papers. So they're going to ensure that it's paper of the best quality that they're going to publish. Yeah, and I know it's become a nightmare in many universities. UNN, people feeling frustrated, AE-FUNAI, UNIZIG, but it's a trend. Now, publishing is very, very important. The challenge you have now is that you have predatory journals. Now, journals that clone real journals. I don't know if you come across that. Journals that are cloning real journals. There's so many of them with the same name, with the same impact factor. So how do you know that this one is the authentic journal and that this one is not the authentic journal, that this one is the fake one? Now, as the dean of the faculty, I'm a member of the appraisal committee, and I see a whole lot of stuff. I was very surprised when I saw the quality of publications. I was congratulating my staff. But in the course of review process, people started noticing inconsistency. So you publish here the same journal with the same name, and that person publish the same journal with the same name, but the different layout, everything is different. So you start how to investigate to find out how come these two journals that have the same name were not the same. And we found out a few things. That you have all this predatory journals. You get emails, varieties of emails every day telling you publish. And they tell you when they're going to publish it. They tell you, submit today, within 5 days, we review it, we give you a response and all that and all that. Predatory journals. You pay, they rip you off. Interesting, you'll be very surprised that there's somebody somewhere in a backlink there that has opened a website and called it Canadian Journal of whatever, and you're just laughing every day, getting a alert, disturbing himself, and his lecturers are sweating. Yeah, so we need to be cautious about that. Now, so how do you get to know the authentic journal? Clarivate Analytics. Yeah, this will help you to know the authentic journal. Go to Clarivate Analytics. So if you go to Clarivate Analytics, you do a search, you will find out the list of journals that have impact factor assigned to it. So if it has impact factor assigned to it, that suggests that it has gone through peer review and it's been cited over and over again, and it will be found to meet the requirement. Now, management studies, you will see, for instance, you could see the impact factor. So this is what we're looking for. Journals that have assigned impact factor. Now, but when they clone the journal, they will also find a way to impact factor. So that is a challenge. But when we probe further, what we found is that when you want to open the previous papers in that journal, you cannot access it. So when they clone a journal, that's one way of finding out if it's a clone journal or not. So try to look at the previous issues. Because if you go to this journal, you will see the abstract of all the issues they have published in the past. But if it's a clone journal, they cannot give it to you because it's so much time consuming for them to go and do all that. So they will not do that. They will blank it. Yeah, so that is one key way of discovering which one is being cloned. Now, we have what we call ABS list, Academy of Business Studies Journalists. So that could be also one way of identifying the top journals in your field. So if you go online, you look at ABS journalists, it will list all the journals. But these are a sample of very top journals in the broad field of management studies. You could see this is a flagship journal, Academy of Management Journal. If you publish here, we'll call you Obuago. Yes, this would be a very good one to publish. So these are all very valuable journals. And the beauty of publishing in this is that even the Westerners know how difficult it is to publish here. So when you publish here, you will open up yourself to a lot of international opportunities. Why is it that when people want to go to sabbatical, They're moving from Enugu to Oka or to Kalago. Why can't you go to University of Leiden for a sabbatical? Why can't you go to a university in the US or South Africa for a sabbatical? It is because they don't recognize our work. We're not publishing in those places where they publish. So if you publish in those places where they publish, they place a premium on you. So it is very, very important if you're going to explore opportunities internationally, international fellowships, then it is imperative that you are publishing in these areas. Now, okay, to hit the nail on the head, what do we need to do? Get into the discipline of writing. Target journals properly and narrowly. Read the aims and mission of the journal. Sometimes papers are rejected, not because it's bad quality, it's because you have not submitted it to the appropriate journal. Every paper has a journal that it fits. So you have to look at the scope. Look at the back issues of the journal and evaluate yours and see if it maps to the scope of the journal so that it enhances the prospect of it being accepted. Use exemplars. When I write, it takes me a long while to write. But when it comes out, it's so lovely. People like it. They say you write so well. But it takes a lot of work. I started using exemplars. When I write with outline. So I will start from the introduction to conclusion. So I know the number of paragraphs I'm going to have. It is that detailed. So when I look at the literature review, I know the number of paragraphs, the number of sections. I do an outline and I'll start fitting it in. When I look at my introduction, I will say it's going to be 4 paragraphs. I will determine the first paragraph is going to be this, second paragraph is going to be this, and I start fitting it in. Why are you doing that? You want to reduce the chances of it being rejected by looking at papers that have been accepted and saying, oh, okay, if this has been accepted, I can benchmark this. If this work gets to this level, at least it will get fair hearing. So you deconstruct, you get exemplars. You deconstruct the paper, find out how many sections or whatever, and then begin to map yours. When you do this over and over again, it becomes second nature. Then you can, even without going to this detail, be writing in a free will way. But at the onset, it is very important that you get a number of exemplars that you use. There are people that write in an elegant way. Look at the academic phrases. Academics, we have our own fashion, we have our way of talking. So how do you get the academic phrases? You go to Manchester Academic Phrase Bank. You see all kinds of phrases, academic phrases, that you can use to express your ideas. I remember something I wrote many years ago, and when I said it to a colleague who speaks good English, has a good command of English. And when she looks at the whole thing, I said, all the things you're trying to say in these 2 paragraphs, what you're trying to say is there's a limitation in scope and context. You could have said this in 1 line. You're being unnecessary verbose. Yeah. So it comes with reading. So you get the fashion. You have the understanding of how best to express your ideas in a very punchy way without losing the impact. So you examine the style of writing of the targeted journal. Then cite papers in the journal. That's one way of getting into the journal. You must cite papers in the journal. You must show that you are following the conversation. Because the editors can only get impact factor if their papers have been cited. So they look at the paper, is this talking anything about this journal? No, you're not part of the conversation. So that is one way. You may flag it up, but let it be a legitimate site, not just to fulfill this righteousness. But I'm just trying to say you must follow the conversation in that journal to be able to get in there. Now send the manuscript to at least 2 academics who have published in the journal for comments and feedback. But I know the truth about it is that people are so busy these days. When you send it to people, they don't even bother because they have a whole lot to do. Then my suggestion then is, then send it out to a journal once it has come to a certain level. Now, it will be rejected, fine, but the whole idea is to be strategic. It's to be strategic. You want to get constructive feedback that will help you to develop the ideas further. So you start from the top. You put it there. It fails, but you get valuable feedback. Sometimes the feedback is as long as the paper. like 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, and all that and all that. But it's all valuable feedback. You look at it, it's just taking time to look at my work and give me very valuable feedback. And when you look at this feedback, then your work will improve very, very significantly. And when you send it to another journal, you can see that every paper will have its resting place. Water will find its level. So you begin to test it until you get there. Now, just to say that 10 publication strategy, and I wind up. Keep up with the literature. A lot of stuff, when you submit it to the journal, they say that we have passed this conversation a long time ago because you're not keeping up with the conversation. We are past this place. So how do you do this? So when you go to a journal, you have to register for alert so that the content alert, they call it content alert. You register all those top journals in your field. Register there so that anytime a paper is published, they send you an email to alert you to that this paper has been published, free of charge. So when people are getting alerts in their bank account, what I'm getting every day is alert that the paper has been published and all that and all that. That is the life of a scholar. That's my own bank account. That's right. That's the life of a scholar. So you need to register in those so that you can keep abreast with the current development. Decide early on where to publish your work. Submit your best work to the top journals. Yeah, that's very important. When I speak with colleagues, I found that so many of them have brilliant ideas, but they have submitted their work in mediocre journals, and they look at it in retrospect. If I have submitted this paper in this journal, it would have flagged. So you need to look at these journals and make sure that you start from the top before getting down. Now, you need to write well in English. That's the point. But the good news is that there are support services that can help you. If your English is not, you don't have a mastery of English language, there are some support that you can get while you continually improve